this is a really good, fun story about how you use CVC tools really cleverly. So I want to kind of set the tone with that kind of energy. And also, I got to say, Matt and Raza are also some of the most fun guys in CVC. So this is going to be a good session. Anyway, don't leave. Don't leave. Stay
I want to see that in writing in the next write-up, though. Okay.
Yes. Okay. But so we've talked. The previous session talked about venture clienting as a tool and this idea that we have a varied toolkit, right? So now we're going to talk about a different kind of tool, which is this collective investment that can really be done very effectively, and the way that you sort of can combine that with your regular ongoing CVC activities that you would do, which in fact then liberates you from some kind of struggles that I think a lot of units have. So having set the scene, I'll sort of maybe start with getting Matt to pick up some of that story in terms of the challenge that you had, with One World Alliance, with IAG, with sustainable aviation fuel in general.
Yeah, so I think that this story, as you say, picks up really, really nicely from the previous panel, right? I think somebody on the previous panel said you can't build a house with a screwdriver. I first came to this conference probably 15, 16 years ago, and the reason that I keep coming back is there is no one solution that fits all corporates, all problems, for forever as well. Corporates need to evolve to solve their problems. And so I was part of the team that founded IAG's venture capability, 10 years ago. And that's morphed. Every time you get a new CEO, you need to adapt. Every time you get a new CFO, you need to adapt. Every time, COVID or an oil crisis strikes, you need to you need to adapt as the corporate venturing team. I think every problem you're trying to solve also can have a completely different solution based on whether or not it's something you're trying to solve for the industry or something you can solve alone and it can provide a competitive advantage. Sustainability is one of those things that no individual airline is going to solve by itself. It needs, IATA estimates, about 7 trillion between now and 2050 if we're going to hit net zero. I can't remember what the last annual report number was for IAG's profitability. It was good, but it wasn't 7 trillion, right? So we're going to have to, galvanize the entire industry. And that's something we'll pick up during this panel.
But SAF was kind of part of your remit as a corporate venture investor, trying to advise the corporate on what to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And SAF's hard, right? We talk about sustainable aviation fuel. Kerosene brought us the aviation industry. The fact that we've got these liquid fuels that you can pump into an aircraft and then fly over the Atlantic. The energy density, everything about kerosene is just perfect for aviation, apart from the emissions. And as a CVC, you're looking at the biggest problems that you're going to be facing over the next 30 years. Sustainability is one of those big problems that aviation is going to have to tackle over the next 30 years. So we pointed the CVC unit at it. We started investing in sustainability probably 2019, 2020. Sustainable aviation fuel is hard because there are 14 different pathways. There are a million different technologies, a million different feedstocks that you can use to create sustainable aviation fuel. And as a CVC, and Raza, you've got kind of pretty similar priorities 10 years on to the ones that, we kind of launched, IAG Ventures with. Like, you can't be a PhD in all of those areas. You can't be a kind of, catalytic scientist with petrochemical
Nor can you even hire one of each of those PhDs for your team.
No.
It's just not kind of feasible on that scale.
Yeah. And I think if I'd have gone into Luis Gallego and said, I want to hire the former director of the ARPA-E program under Barack Obama's administration and the president of Duke University to help us do investments, and this is how much it's going to cost to bring them into the venture capital team, Luis would have quite quickly said,
you'd be out the door.
Yeah, no. You just can't do that by yourself in one CVC. So coming back to the different tools that you can use, you can do it if you bring in, other airlines, if you bring in other expertise, if you kind of think about the structure a little bit differently.
So spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't followed the story. So then, the answer to this dilemma was a partnership with Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which, the Bill Gates-backed, very cool, sustainability-focused fund, which does have these experts. But we don't get from A to, partnering with Bill Gates in one, small click of the finger. So how did that kind of aha moment and realizing that was the route that you wanted to go down?
Yeah, so I mean, Raza, you'll remember the trip that we did to a couple of, sustainable aviation fuel facilities. We're kind of stood there looking at these big machines with steam coming out, and we're like, oh, that looks very impressive. But our ability to do due diligence on deep tech was just...
Yeah, I mean, we were in, I think, San Francisco, and we were looking at a municipal waste plant. I don't recommend it. Don't go.
Stinks.
Not the
I mean,
not the most pleasant
when you
environment.
tell your wife you're in California, she's kind of thinking you're at the beach, but actually you're at the local tip.
But we were looking at this, demo facility, and it was working. There was luckily we had a biochemical scientist who can talk the talk, and they have that history. But we did see like a glass mug attached to the. But we didn't know if that was needed or if that was an accident. We found out
the CEO didn't know why it was there, and that's always a...
But there was a porcelain mug attached to the demo facility, but it was capturing something of some sort. But you need that to be questioned. We would just look and be like, okay, and then we'll look at the end liquid. There are people who are experts that look at what goes in, what comes out, how much, at what temperature it burns at. I can tell you that about fuel. I couldn't tell you that about green hydrogen. I couldn't tell you about biochar and stuff. You're going to need people who are going to take that and then also influence other policies, influence other companies. And we started getting relatively quite good at it ourselves, but only in an aviation sense. We couldn't tell you wider. But then we started helping other airlines and bringing them on the journey. But that's quite time-consuming to do.
Well, I mean, the reason that trip was particularly useful to bring up as well, it was not just us, it was American Airlines there, JAL had been there the previous day, so other airlines are kind of doing all of this work and you're duplicating. Instead of working together, we were kind of, trying to each, put very finite resource into working out, which technology is best, which technology deserves, the capital. And we kind of recognized that duplication and we thought, actually, how do we solve this? Do we create a fund that one of us runs and the other puts money in? Do we create an independent structure that just that starts from scratch, or do we partner? The partner of Alaska Ventures and I went down to Silicon Valley to find out whether or not there are any kind of credible partners. We found Breakthrough have got 10 years of history, doing sustainable investment at scale. They've got a strategic impact that they want to have. Every investment has got to be able to save, 0.5 gigaton of carbon by 2050. So, it's a strategic fund. It was a perfect partnership. And rather than explaining it, should we play the video to kind of show you what we put together?
Yeah.
I'm excited to announce the launch of the One World BEV Fund. This partnership brings together the One World Alliance, its member airlines, Breakthrough Energy, and others to build an investment fund that will advance innovation to make sustainable aviation fuel affordable.
Our member airlines are united to reduce emissions and invest in technologies that can improve speed to market across the globe.
Big picture, the vast majority of the planet hasn't been on an airplane. Around the world today, we see a rise in prosperity. That will inevitably lead to much greater aviation, transportation. We have to find ways to make hydrocarbons that are suited to purpose for transportation in a way that doesn't produce emissions. This fund is built to address that incredible challenge.
Our goal is to leapfrog current SAF technologies. We like Breakthrough Energy as a partner because they bring deep expertise in clean energy investing. Our customers want this, and it's just good business.
This partnership is about leading together to build a future where flying is safe, reliable, and more sustainable.
SAF technologies are very expensive to produce, so there is a gap in the investment needed to bring them to market. This fund is designed to help close that gap.
Asia will continue to play a critical role in the future SAF ecosystem, both as a key producer and with growing demand.
The stable supply of next-generation SAF will make a significant contribution to decarbonizing the airline industry.
Breakthrough Energy Ventures has the technical depth to evaluate potential pathways to production that have both a cost and a scale entitlement necessary to be successful in the marketplace.
The challenge that we're taking on here is one of the most difficult in the whole climate space. But I know we're going to find some incredible ideas, great entrepreneurs, and achieve our sustainable aviation goals.
Okay, so I love that video because everybody seems so aligned and they're all, but what was the reality? Because you're talking about some airlines that had no CVC experience prior to this, right?
Well, apart from Alaska, nobody else had put money into an external fund before. Like, we were big, when you're briefing, to Tori Sand, the CEO of JAL just then, and she's asking, well, which companies are you going to invest in? And you're like, I don't know yet. How much money will you need to deploy in years 1 and 2? I don't know yet. What's the likely first, gallon of SAF going to come out of one of these facilities? And you're like, it might be in 8, 10, 12, 15. We know we were able to align on the message because actually everybody recognizes that we don't have enough sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel is going to be the primary means of decarbonizing. Everybody's agreed on that. Everybody agrees that it costs too much. So it was quite easy to bring people together and say, well, actually, this is the genesis of what became the fund thesis. We're trying to get sustainable aviation fuel over the next 10 years down to price parity with jet at 75 to 80. And that's a very, very clear thesis, and everybody could come in on that. And actually, it's worth saying, those are all the one world carriers. Once we've created this thing, actually, we've got lots of corporates, OEMs, other people in the ecosystem that kind of saw what we created and would like to join. And we're just about to announce in the next few weeks, some high net worths and some OEMs and some non-one world airlines that want to come on the journey with us as well.
Amazing. So you heard it here first. But I just wanted to also, so that, after a bit of education and bringing everyone on board, that worked. What impact did it then have on the CVC unit that you were running by this point, Raza? Because, did that allow you to then kind of refocus and put your energy into some other things?
Yeah, it allowed me not to talk about hydrocarbons and chemicals for a good certain period of time. No, it gives us flexibility and it proves out, right? So it gives us shared risk that, okay, fine, I have some current investments in my portfolio. Now I don't have to constantly keep growing that. I've made various bets in different feedstocks and I've put my faith in this fund to now build out further. And the good thing is we didn't want to participate if it was just money. And we didn't. It was, we need to have a line to actually getting access to that stuff. And that was a red line for us. It isn't just about, it's not financial gain. You invest in a great company that's going to take off. No, we want to collectively do it, get them growth, and then we want to buy the product. Like, when do you get that? You want to invest and build, but then you all want to buy the product. And we'll do that on an individual basis. There isn't a buying in bulk and then sharing it. Everyone will do it on an individual basis by market. So that was a key thing. But what that frees up is, why we were set up is we always try to match the corporate goals. So the net zero goal of 2050, we kind of we've got this channel now to cover that. We've got experts doing it and we've made our own bets. Now let's pivot to some of the other fundamental problems. Is how is the workforce going to be in the future? Like, we have an aging workforce that are, are young kids going to want to be baggage handlers, or they're going to want to be YouTubers? Like, no one finds working in the airport attractive. Is that going to be a crisis for us? Do we need to start exploring automation and robotics? And then we have to become experts in that sort of stuff. Our airlines have now launched Starlink on board, so we've got high-speed connectivity, which we never had before. So we can enhance the passenger experience. So you can know what gate you're going to have to be at, your luggage is going to be at. You can start booking your hotel. What can we do from an entertainment point of view to make your journey better, and go find that tech to make that happen? Because it wasn't a possibility before. And, exploring the art of AI and quantum, it's very... We have to stay focused, and like I've said, we're a strategic. It has to have a use case in aviation, but that's a niche of a niche, right? And AI is generally a lot of tooling that does, all purpose and enterprise-wise. So we need to go find that tech that's going to give us that 1-2% edge over our competitors. So it allowed us freedom of thought and freedom of space and learning new spaces, and slightly saying, like Matt said, we've consistently had this generally the same investment thesis, but we're able to pivot to some things wider.
Yeah. So it's having that toolkit. Now, I'm very conscious that we're very nearly out of time, in fact, but I would like to just have one final thought from both of you, really, is that, because there are other similarly large problems in other industries that will probably need collective action. What do you think other industries, other CVC investors can take from your experience? Because we're talking, this isn't really just a kind of random fund. I mean, not that any fund of fund investments is random, but this is a more active engagement than simply a fund of fund investments that you park and leave. So if other people are looking at a similar problem that they want to collectively solve, what advice would there be in terms of kind of bringing something like this together?
I think speak to people that have done it before. Speak to people that have been in the market. I think, as I said at the very, very start, there's 100 ways to do this. We've seen it on stage, yesterday, today. There are different models for different problems. Work out what it is that you are trying to do. As Raza said, is it a competitive advantage? Is it something that you need collective action on? The solution might be something that people have done before, or you might need to create something that looks and feels very new. The way that this fund works, we get all of the strategic benefits that we're after, while maximizing the talents and expertise of a partner. And I think that's why we're able to find such a good fit for the problem that we were trying to solve. But we did have to break it down. We had to think about what is it that we want as airlines? What are the things that we bring to the table? And how can we work with the rest of the ecosystem to make those happen?
In terms of the back end of
I had this question asked to me yesterday of how did you get around the legal side and working with competitors and things like that. Actually, like we said, we're not doing it for financial goal. It is to build this industry so we can get supply. We're not building a price and setting a price or anything like that. And I talked through those dynamics with one person. They were like, look, we've moved out of certain markets and other people from other regions have gone in. I want to work with Europeans to build up the market again. I go, that's financial. You're doing it for the wrong goal. For example, if I said all the car companies a couple of years ago, if you got together of, hey, how do we collectively build an energy infrastructure or an electric infrastructure so it's consistent with all of us? That's a general goal. You're all trying to get to decarbonization. It's not about a new price model or anything like that. There's a nuance that you have to agree on of what is the ultimate mission that you're trying to achieve. If it's for the greater good of humanity, for your industry, then that's probably what you want to pursue. If it's for personal financial goal that you think you just need other people's money to kind of get there faster, that will fail. I don't think that will achieve anything.
I mean, and appreciating that we're somewhat out of time, this strategic versus financial always comes up, and it always comes up, within this group. But if you put the focus on the right thing to begin with and really separate what is your strategic goal, and then you back the companies that help you reach that, and then they grow naturally, the financial will follow.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid we really are out of time. But Matt and Raza are around today, so if you are thinking of a similar problem, come find them. But thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.